and welcome to the Crime Chat. I'm your forensic femme fatale. Natalie is your true crime addict connoisseur.
We're just two normal girls obsessed with dark crimes, evil minds, and occasionally the unknown.
Here is your disclaimer, chatters. The following Crime Chat season finale, here, two of us, is going to contain adult content and descriptions of violent scenarios today, so your listener discretion is advised.
You have been warned. Before we get into today's Crime Chat, Pat, what have you done?
I'm here. This is the biggest thing that we have done.
Yes.
By far.
Since the last big thing we did.
Since the last big thing. It gets bigger and bigger and better. Lauren came down here, so I watched the movie The Deliverance.
Yeah, I see that on my Netflix feed. I just haven't clicked on it. Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Is it spooky?
Yeah.
Supernatural?
Yeah.
Really?
It's based on that true story of the demon house.
Yes.
Where the boy gets possessed and he ends up going to the hospital and he breaks free of his restraints and then climbs up the wall.
In the hospital. I remember that story.
Yes.
Okay.
It is a crazy story. Very good. Glenn Close is in it.
Love her.
Yes. She did fantastic in that movie as well. Of course, slowly watching Only Murders in the Building. Sad because I can't binge it, but Chris and I will go back and watch it again from the beginning. So that's about it for me, other than being here.
I know. I started watching Dark Winds, which is George R. Martin. He did his TV series on Netflix or Amazon.
It was on AMC originally. It was on AMC.
Okay. It's really good. We're on like episode 4. So the plot in, great George R. Martin style, he's making us wait. So won't wait 8 years, but he's making us wait. But that's about it.
Yeah, it's exciting. We have got something special for you guys today. So as with our bonus episodes, our season finale, we are continuing with the female serial killer theme to Big Bang and Out season 3 for you guys. Yeah. But we are going to both be making a themed cocktail based on our stories that we're telling.
Chatters, Kat and I will be your Crime Chat bartenders today. Maybe we're murder mixologists.
Ooh, I like that.
Criminal chemists. Boozy butchers. The poison pours.
Oh.
I like the murder mixologists.
Yeah, I like murder mixologists.
Well, we haven't even started drinking yet. Here we go. All right, so my Crime Chat today is going to be about somebody who lives in Florida, Christine Falling. Have you ever heard of her?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's pretty evil.
Yeah.
Pretty evil. She's the babysitter serial killer. Babysitter killer. She's babysitter killer. Say that 5 times.
Babysitter killer. We'll have to test after we have
My Crime Chat inspired cocktail will be called the Mommy Dearest. Well, it's Mother Dearest, but I'm going to call it Mommy Dearest. If you're looking for a killer cocktail recipe while learning all about Christina Falling, this is the cocktail. This case is a perfect backdrop for this cocktail. So let's find out what you need to make this murderously delicious drink. Before we get into our story, I'm gonna need 1.5 ounces of butterscotch, which we got here. Okay, I'm going to use my shaker. So a shot glass is 1 ounce.
But you're gonna make 2 of them, so you want 2 ounces. Well, 3. It's 1.5 ounces, right?
Oh boy. Pat's here to do math. Okay. Next one. 3 ounces of heavy whipping cream. Lord. Okay. Nah, I would be a terrible bartender. God. So far, I have added
Butterscotch, schnapps.
butter shots. And then I added heavy cream. So what do I need next, Kat?
So you need 1 ounce of cinnamon simple syrup or simple syrup with a dash of cinnamon.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Okay, so while I get this open, I'm gonna start my case. In the early 1980s, small towns across Florida were gripped in fear by a series of deaths, unexplained deaths, of the lives of innocent children and 1 elderly person. At the center of this tragedy was an unlikely suspect. Her name was Christine Falling. She was quiet, she was unassuming, she was basically just a simple girl, but she was also trusted by families with their children. She was the babysitter. Everybody knew her in the neighborhood. What's the next thing I need?
The simple syrup? 2 ounces.
2 ounces. That is syrupy.
Ooh-wee.
Okay.
Sugar it up.
Yeah. Christine was born on March 12, 1963 in Perry, Florida, which is not too far away from here. It is a small town located in the northern part of the state. Christine's early years was marked with chaos, though. She had a hard life in the beginning. She was born into a dysfunctional family. She was number 3 of 5 children. Her father was an alcoholic. Her mother didn't know how to handle 5 kids and dealing with a husband that's an alcoholic that was never there to help. She ended up going from foster home. DCF was called a bunch of times. Christine was taken out of the home. All the children were taken out of the home a bunch of different times. This upbringing definitely left her emotionally and psychologically scarred. What are we doing next?
Add cinnamon.
Oh, okay.
Didn't say how much.
I know.
Cinnamon it up.
Her friends described her as strange and unpredictable. She was known in the community from peers and teachers that she was a loner. She had like a weird demeanor. So she had wild mood swings. So she went from angry to calm. And then she started telling people in the class and her teachers that she was hearing voices. And she was also talking to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was going through a lot. Early signs of cruelty emerged when Christine reportedly killed kittens, cat, by throwing them off roofs or strangling them. Such cruelty towards animals is often a red flag for violent behavior. Thank you, Mindhunter.
Yeah, so the trilogy though. Bedwetting, killing animals, and setting fires. Did she do the other ones? No. Okay.
Teachers described her as being slow. Back then, this is in the 80s, so I guess they didn't have the right terminology. I don't know. So weird. They put her into like a special education class due to her low IQ, which was estimated to be around like 70. She struggled academically. She was prone to disruptive behavior, frequently lashing out and withdrawing into herself. Okay, so what's next?
1 tablespoon of coffee grounds, so 2 tablespoons of coffee grounds.
I'm using a K-cup. I'm gonna eyeball this. Then what else? Is that it? I think that's it.
That's it.
Like I said, she was telling people that she was hearing voices. Things were going on. Even though DCF was called, they really didn't have the resources to help her with her mental health issues at the time. And by the age of 9, she left school.
Wow.
Yeah, 9 years old. Mostly because she couldn't keep up with the other kids. That must have been terrible for her. I feel bad. And they say like they're not reading at the level of 3rd grade, like they are going to struggle for the rest of their career. Okay, so now lacking the educational skills, Christine turned to babysitting as a way of earning money. Now that's smart, you know?
Yeah.
So in 1977, at the age of 14, she also entered into a brief marriage. She married somebody 6 years older than her.
At 14?
At 14, yeah.
Even in the 80s, I don't know that that's legal.
In Florida. Maybe it was back then. I don't know.
I don't know. That's young.
So marriage only lasted 6 weeks and then she was divorced. And then Christine had to go back home with her family that she probably running away from. Now, despite her personal life, Christine managed to find steady work as a babysitter, but she moved frequently depending on the job she was getting. So whatever town she was asking her to work. And I guess also word of mouth, a lot of people were saying, oh, she's a really good babysitter.
Yeah.
So, and Perry, Florida is a rural section of Florida, so the word gets around. To the outside world, she appeared that she liked children.
Caring,
loving, and now I'm going to pour us a drink.
Because we might need it.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
That looks thick.
It does look thick. All right, let's try it. Here we go. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, wow.
It's actually pretty good. I just don't like the coffee floating.
Yeah. It's really good.
It actually is pretty good. All right. So the first known murder committed by Christine occurred on February 25th, 1980, when she was 17 years old. The first victim was 2-year-old Cassidy Johnson, a child she had been babysitting in Florida. Christine later confessed that something just told me to do it, and she smothered the baby, okay? Now, the cause of death was ruled SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, and no suspicion fell on Christine. Sudden infant death syndrome is the sudden, unexplained death of an otherwise healthy infant, usually during sleep. SIDS typically occurs in infants younger than a year old and often is referred to as crib death because it usually happens when the baby is sleeping in the crib. Now, despite the medical research, the exact cause of SIDS remains unknown, though it is believed to be related to the issues in a baby's sleep environment or brain development or underlying factors. Now, one of the most heartbreaking murders is the double tragedy that struck the Spring and Davis families. Christine was hired to babysit 4-year-old Jeffrey Davis in Lakeland, Florida, which is not that far away.
Not that far, yeah.
He ended up dying in her care on July 2nd, 1981. She claimed that he had just stopped breathing suddenly. Jeffrey's death was initially ruled as a heart inflammation, which is a condition that seemed plausible at the time. Days later, while the family was attending Jeffrey's funeral and still grieving, they entrusted Christine to babysit Jeffrey's 2-year-old cousin.
Yeah.
And within minutes, Joseph collapsed and died under Christine's care.
Wow.
She also suffocated this baby, and the death, again, was attributed to natural causes. Christine remained free. The death was initially ruled viral myocarditis. This is good. I just don't like the coffee.
Tasty.
I just don't like the floating coffee in the drink. Okay. So now the Spring and Davis families were devastated, losing 2 children in the same month. Christine was hired for another babysitting job in July 1981 for a 2-year-old girl named Tanya Singleton. Christine attempted to kill her by smothering her with a pillow. However, Tanya survived the attack and was hospitalized and would later recover. But then again, still, nobody thought Christine was doing anything wrong. Now, Christine also been hired at this time to babysit 10-week-old Travis Coleman. On January 10th, 1982, while alone with Travis, Christine smothered the infant, claiming she simply wanted him to hush it. That's it.
He was just crying.
He was just crying.
To be fun.
And like her previous victims, they probably were crying too.
Yeah.
Travis's death was initially attributed to SIDS, with no immediate suspicion falling on Christine. Christine then was hired in Lakeland to care for her next victim, a 3-month-old Jennifer Daniels, whom she smothered on February 15th, 1982. Now, Jennifer's death was initially ruled SIDS, just like her previous victims.
Right.
Over the next year, Christine continued to move from town to town, taking on babysitting jobs. Her next victim would be on March 31st, 1982. She began working for a 77-year-old man. Okay, his name was Wilbur Swindle in Perry, Florida. Christine had been hired to help care for him because of his age and deteriorating health. Wilbur's family never suspected that the babysitter who was hired to assist in his care would be the one to kill him. He stopped breathing and died. The same day Christine was hired, she murdered him.
The same day?
The exact same day. The first day of, that is being bad at your job. I mean, you literally, the first day of work, and your client dies. Seriously. She claims that Wilbur just went to bed, fell asleep, and never woke up. She ended up leaving, but first she stole some of his money and his possessions, and then she fled. She later confessed that she killed him by smothering him. During the investigation, they spoke with Christine and took a closer look at her. Police started to connect the dots. Doctors noticed similarities in the deaths of the children that she had been babysitting, because remember, there was like a path of death that was following her at this point. And it was really only over 2 years, from 1980 to 1982. The frequency and the circumstances of the death were too suspicious to be coincidental.
Good.
Now, John Slaughter, the medical examiner, these names. Oh my God, Bailey Sarian did this case and she mentioned the name. That's right. John Slaughter. John Slaughter. He was the medical examiner in Gainesville. And he was the first one to raise any alarm, noticing that the death of Cassidy Johnson bore signs of suffocation rather than SIDS. An additional autopsy was confirmed, and it confirmed the suspicion that he had, and police were called in. As the investigation unfolded, authorities linked the deaths of Jeffrey Davis, Joseph Spring, back to Christine. Detectives interviewed Christine, who initially denied any wrongdoing. However, the discovery of the pattern wherever Christine falling went, death followed. They also interviewed the families of the victim, and the victims' families were actually kind of like sticking up for her, like, oh my God, you can't be picking on Christine. She's so nice and so simple and so sweet. No, it can't be her. But police couldn't avoid the evidence. Like, no, wherever she goes, like, the common factor is her.
Exactly.
Mysterious death is just a trip. Wherever she is, somebody is dying.
New job, same day.
Yeah.
Death.
Now, the key that broke the case was when Christine was subject to a polygraph test and she failed. Now, to her, she had very limited education, so things like this would scare her because she didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And when she failed, I think at that point, she finally said, this is out of my control, and she just broke down and confessed to everything. She stated, I just wanted them to hush, indicating that she killed the children to silence them. They were crying, they were young, and they were bothering her.
Yeah.
She described how she used blankets or pillows to suffocate them. She stated she watched them struggle to breathe and as they eventually died. That's evil. During the confession, the investigators were shocked by her demeanor. They said she was like very slow. She had very little emotion. She had zero remorse. And the investigators said that like her confessions were bone chilling and very matter of fact when she was describing it. Christine Falling was arrested in 1982 and charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder. During her trial in Tampa, Florida, the prosecution painted a vivid picture of a disturbed young woman who preyed on the innocent. Defense tried to argue that she suffered from mental health issues, citing that her history of like being in fraud that just shuffled around through the foster system, her parents, all that trauma, the undiagnosed psychological disorders. But the evidence against Christine was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Her confession, combined with the patterns of the deaths and the medical testimonies, were all clear signs of suffocation, and they were enough to convict her. Now, in December 1982, Christine was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
So she got life for all of them, not like life per.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for the one that survived.
Okay.
With the possibility of parole after 25 years. So she has to serve 25 years and then she's up for parole.
Wow.
Which it already happened and she was denied.
Yeah, okay.
So Christine remains incarcerated at the Lowell Correctional Institute in Ocala, Florida. Now in her early 60s, she has become a notorious figure in American crime. Christine, known for the cold and calculated murders she committed as a young lady. She continued to show like little remorse for her actions even till today. Like she just doesn't care. And making her like one of those evil female serial killers that are still amongst us, living amongst us today.
Yeah.
Now, can something like this be driven by mental illness? You know, not lack of education. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Like the totality of circumstances just made this formula that.
Yeah. I think when you're killing something, there has to be some type of damage. I don't know. I get it. Trauma.
Yes.
Or
pleasure from it.
Like pleasure from it.
From her. Like some serial killers get sexual pleasure out of murdering their victims.
Right.
Like what pleasure was she getting out of it?
Ugh. Okay. This just grosses me out. Especially the killing kittens and babies. Christine's case is a grim reminder of how someone entrusted with the caring for the most valuable can harbor a dark and violent past or tendencies. It serves as a stark warning about the importance of awareness when it comes to the child care and complexities of identifying troubled individuals who may not outwardly appear dangerous. Her story remains a testament to how unchecked trauma and mental illness can manifest in horrific ways.
Yes, it can.
Yes. And that is my story, and that is my drink. I think without the coffee, I probably like it.
Maybe if there's like a coffee, like, because I think the coffee adds to it.
Yeah.
But I can see, like, with the grounds.
I don't like the brown.
Yeah.
I can't wait to try yours though.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next drink? Okay. I cannot wait. This is my favorite side of the bar.
That's being served. So my story, sex, drugs, and murder, baby. Come with us on a mystifying journey into Canada. With majestic mountains, frozen glaciers, beautiful cities, incredible wildlife, Canada's massive landscape stretches nearly 6.2 million square miles. That's huge.
Yeah.
It includes 6 time zones total. And
Canada does?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And as vast as it is, however, only 0.5% of the world's population actually live there. I mean, I can only imagine. It's the second largest country in the world to Russia.
Right.
But it's freezing, so, I mean, you won't catch me there. There's also something called the Canadian Shield, and it's a very hilly region of lakes and swamps that extends across northern Canada. And it has some of the oldest rocks on Earth.
Really?
Which I thought that was kind of a little fun fact. Narrowing down even further, we're going to go into Ontario. It is the second largest province behind Quebec, but it's the most populated province, and it's home to more than 14 million people. Quebec is bigger, but there's more population in Ontario.
Okay.
And that's mainly because the capital city of Toronto is in Ontario. It actually holds 1/3 of Canada's total population in Ontario.
Okay.
Niagara Falls remains one of the most popular tourist attractions, and it has over 250,000 lakes.
Really?
It's a lot of glaciers,
Wow.
it's a lot of ice.
But it's not all populated. Like Canada's got spots.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it's just
Well, I mean, like
Moose.
mountain police.
Yeah.
It's also the country's wealthiest province and is considered an economic powerhouse. With its central location, Ontario's proximity to the United States markets, full supply of cheap power, labor force, the abundance of natural resources, and diversified transportation, it has basically catapulted Ontario into being one of the most productive economies in Canada. Sounds great, right?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Well, Ontario was the birthplace of a master manipulator, masochistic sexual offender, and serial killer.
Oh boy.
But she didn't act alone. This story unveils the Ken and Barbie killers. I am going to go ahead and start my badass Barbie.
Yeah.
Badass Barbie.
Badass Barbie. I cannot wait.
What are we starting with?
So let's get the coconut rum out.
Okay.
And you're going to need an ounce, so 2 ounces.
Okay. So 2 ounces of coconut rum. We're just using some Malibu. So because there's 2 of us, there's 2 ounces, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually applying for my liquor license to be a bartender.
Why don't I know that about you? How did I,
Snuck it under the radar.
what the hell?
Okay, Karla Leanne Homolka. Homolka was born May 4th, 1970 to a Czech father, Karol, and a Canadian mother, Dorothy Homolka. She was the eldest sister to Lori and Tammy. Not much else really is known about like her childhood and the upbringing.
Right.
Until you get to her as a teenager. When the family moved to St. Catharines, Ontario, Karla began working part-time at a pet shop while she was attending secondary school. She seemed like a normal child and teenager, apparently. She was popular, she was pretty, she was adored by the people around her, and she had a passion for animals. Only to turn into an animal herself.
Oh boy.
What's next?
The berry vodka, 2 ounces.
Okay, so we are going to use absolute wild berry. Just
That
big old
looks
little wild.
delicious. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to like this drink. You're going to have to make more.
I'm making a mess too, yeah. So when Karla was 17, her love for animals led her to a pet convention. And this is where she would meet her soon-to-be husband and partner in crime at a restaurant on October 17th, 1987. Karla, 17, and then 23-year-old Paul Bernardo, they had an instant attraction. They were like in love, all smitten all about it, and engaged within 2 months. So by December of 87, they were engaged. Karla, of course, was underage, so they had to wait a little bit. She was still in school as well. She graduated in 1988, but soon after she was hired as a veterinary assistant at the Thorold Vet Clinic and later took a similar job at Martindale Animal Clinic. This was where Karla stole drugs to use in her crimes. What's next?
Oh boy. You got cranberry juice, 2 ounces, and then orange juice, 2 ounces.
We're just using, the ocean spray. Karla and Paul, they were inseparable.
Yeah.
Paul spent a significant amount of time with the Homolka family, but this would also backfire. The pair shared passions for sadomasochism, sexual acts, wherein Karla willingly submitted to Paul's commands. The obsession began to morph into violence. At one point, Paul asked Karla if she would allow him to rape another woman.
What?
And she said yes. She agreed.
Oh boy. That's disturbing.
So by 1990, Paul became obsessed with Karla's sister, Tammy.
Oh god, is there enough alcohol at this bar to listen to the story?
We're going. That's why we're going slow.
We're gonna.
Paul became obsessed with Tammy. She was 15.
The sister.
The sister.
Oh boy.
He was flirting with her, peeping into her bedroom window, masturbating over her while she slept. You would think this would piss Karla off, right? No. She helped him by breaking blinds so he could peek in through her window.
Oh my god.
Yes. Now, initially covering up the fact that he had lost his job, I think he was an accountant.
Right.
So he started smuggling cigarettes across the U.S.-Canada border since the border was really close. In July of 1990, Paul, took Tammy, the sister, across the border to get beer. And they went to a party, and they got drunk. And then Paul came back and said, hey, Tammy and I got drunk and made out. Didn't really get a reaction from Karla, but what's about to come is interesting. What's next?
Pineapple juice, 2 ounces.
Ooh, oh. It's full. My hands aren't big enough. Bartending is sticky and messy, but delicious. So Paul would later testify at his trial that he said on July 24th, 1990, Karla laced spaghetti sauce with crushed Valium that she stole from Martindale Animal Clinic to serve it to Tammy for dinner. Tammy ate it and she lost consciousness. Paul then raped Tammy while Karla watched, saying that she saw it as an opportunity to have Tammy as a victim because it would minimize risks. They would have control of the situation.
Right.
And she would, quote unquote, keep it in the family.
Oh my God. That's sick person. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So over the summer of 1990, Paul provided Tammy and her friends with gifts, food, sodas that all had a, quote, film and a few white flecks on top. Doesn't really say what that was, but I think we can presume what it was by now. So at a Christmas party later that year, December 23rd, 1990, Karla and Paul served Tammy spiked eggnog. But it wasn't just spiked. It was spiked with halcyon, a benzodiazepine.
What does that do? Make you fall asleep?
Sleeping pill. Treats insomnia.
Okay.
It can slow or stop breathing, cause you to feel lightheaded, dizzy, drowsy, lose coordination.
Right.
But this wasn't enough for the panic Barbie. They also used a rag soaked in halothane, which is a general anesthetic when you breathe it in.
Oh my God.
This was to keep Tammy unconscious while they both undressed and raped her.
Oh my God.
She did that to her own sister. Not just watching this time, actually doing it.
Yeah. Sick.
Karla said she wanted to give Tammy to Paul as a Christmas present because he was disappointed that Paul wasn't her first, that Karla had sex before meeting.
So I'm offering up my sister.
I'm offering my sister.
Oh my God.
As their parents slept upstairs, Paul and Karla videotaped themselves as they raped Tammy in the basement. At one point, Tammy puked while she was being raped and completely lost consciousness. The halothane that was put over her face also caused Tammy to have chemical burn on her face.
Oh my God.
Paul and Karla tried to revive Tammy. They called 911, but not before they hid the evidence, redressed Tammy, and moved her from the basement into her bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy was pronounced dead.
Oh my God.
The official cause was listed as accidental, being attributed to alcohol consumption and subsequently choking on her own vomit, despite the drugs that they did find in her system. What's next?
Next, you've got to do the lime and cherries for garnish and then black sprinkles for garnish. Not sweet. Straight.
Okay, 3 weeks after Tammy was murdered, Karla and Paul allegedly filmed a video called The Fireside Chat within the Homolka home.
Okay.
It started in the basement and went into the recreation room, where Karla was heard admitting to Paul that she enjoyed watching Paul rape her sister. Then they went from the recreation room to Tammy's bedroom, where Karla dressed in Tammy's clothing, pretended to be Tammy, and then Paul and Karla had sex on Tammy's bed.
Oh my God. This is a really twisted case. Wow.
I'm gonna use lime also, so I'm gonna cut one for the thingy.
The
It's
garnish?
But I'm gonna squeeze.
Yeah, I would definitely squeeze it because it says here to simple syrup the rim of your glass into simple syrup and then black sprinkles.
Oh, I was gonna use the lime.
Oh, okay then.
But we can use simple syrup. Yeah. Hold my beer. Watch this. With no suspicion, Paul and Karla actually moved out. They have their own home, supposedly to let her parents grieve over the loss of Tammy. And they were married in 1991. Paul wrote their wedding vows, and he refused to let the pastor, whoever was the officiator, he refused to let him say husband and wife. He demanded it said man and wife because Karla was to honor, love, and obey him, basically asserting his dominance over her. Karla knew that Tammy's death upset Paul. In fact, actually, Paul blamed Karla for what happened and that Tammy had died. And basically, you gave away our victim.
Yeah.
So Karla brought home a 15-year-old friend, somebody she befriended a couple years prior, only known to this day as Jane Doe.
What?
So Jane Doe came over to the house. It was June 7th, 1991. She was drugged by Karla and subsequently raped by both of them while being videotaped.
Oh, wow. So they know who the girl is. Jane Doe is like,
Correct.
okay, just private. All right.
Yeah. So it's then like a week later, June 15th, Paul was driving through Burlington, which is kind of like an area between Toronto and St. Catharines, to steal license plates And in doing so, he found 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey standing outside of her home.
Okay.
Poor Leslie. She missed curfew and she got locked out of the house. She missed curfew because she went to a friend's wake, which is sad. So she got locked out of the house. Paul approached her and was like, hey, and he told her, I want to break into one of your neighbor's house. And Leslie was like, okay, whatever. Do you have any cigarettes? So he's like, yeah, I got some cigarettes in my car. Well, Leslie followed him and he forced Leslie in the car, blindfolded her, drove her home to Karla and said, hey babe, we got our next victim.
Eesh.
Once again, the demonic pair videotaped themselves, torturing and raping this poor girl while they were listening to Bob Marley and David Bowie this time. At one point in the night, Paul could be heard later on the videotape when they watched it saying, quote, you're doing a good job, Leslie, a damned good job, end quote. And then, quote, the next 2 hours are going to determine what I do with you. Right now, you're scoring perfect, end quote.
Oh my God.
Right? In another part of the videotape, which again was played at Paul's trial, the assault escalated. Leslie could be heard crying out in pain and begging for Paul to stop. Apparently he was sodomizing her while her hands were bound with twine. Leslie told Paul at one point her blindfold was slipping and they were kind of afraid that she would be able to identify both of them if she had lived. Let's add some ice. You want a shaker? I know you're dying for this thing.
I can't wait to have a being very patient.
Yes, let's do the sprinkles.
So much fun.
Paul later testified that on the following day, after they kidnapped and raped Leslie and videotaped it, Karla gave Leslie a lethal dose of the halcyon. However, Karla contradicted that statement in her testimony, saying that Paul strangled her.
Ooh.
Either way, Leslie was dead. They put her body in the basement, and the following day, which was Father's Day, Karla and Paul hosted a family dinner at their home while Leslie is dead in the basement. After Karla's father, mother, and remaining sister Lori left, Karla and Paul decided to dispose of Leslie's body. They determined the best way to do it would be to dismember her and then encase her body parts in concrete. So cut her up and put her in concrete.
Okay.
And that's exactly what they did. The next day, Paul went out, bought bags of cement, used his grandfather's circuit saw to dismember Leslie, and then both Karla and Paul made double trip to dump the body, filled in the cement box, right?
Right.
To Lake Gibson, which is about 11 miles away from their home. One of these blocks actually weighed about 200 pounds, and they couldn't get it into the water because it was too heavy. So they left it on the shore. They're like, we'll just leave this here, you know?
Yeah.
We getting this?
Yes, that looks amazing.
Yeah, big old mess.
Don't forget the cherry.
Yep.
Perfect.
It's the badass Barbie. Want ice in it?
Yeah, you can give me some cubes.
You know what else I'm gonna do? We're gonna do a little
red. Ooh, look at that. Fancy.
and give you a little lime slice, and then
Oh wow, that's a cocktail. Oh, that is a cocktail.
that's the badass Barbie. So the 200-pound block of concrete, which I can only assume had her torso in it, which would have been like the largest part of her body. That was found on June 9th by a father and son team going out to go fishing.
Yeah.
And they came across this concrete block. Leslie was later identified by some orthodontic work that she had done, so maybe part of the head was in it too. So I'm thinking maybe they cut just like the limbs off and put them in the concrete and then maybe cut the head and torso together. June was Jane Doe. June was also Leslie. And then in August of that year, Jane Doe was invited back. She came and again was drugged and raped.
Wow.
With her sister's incident still fresh in her mind, Karla immediately started getting resuscitation to this Jane Doe. She's like, oh, she's doing the same thing. She's convulsing, she's vomiting, everything. But Jane Doe stopped breathing. Ambulance came, but Karla and Paul were able to resuscitate Jane Doe. She survived.
Okay.
So fast forward about 6 months, April of 1992, their itch intensified. They're like, we need another victim. So they drove through St. Catharines, only to find 15-year-old Kristen French. She was walking home. Her parents knew her routine. Her parents knew that she would be home with about 15 minutes, go home, take care of the dog. So when Kristen didn't show up, her parents started getting a little concerned. By the end of the day, they did call the Niagara Regional Police.
Okay.
And they assembled a search party to scour the route where Kristen normally took from school. Witnesses told the police that they saw Kristen's abduction. Why didn't you report it?
They didn't report it?
No.
Come on now.
Now, police also found one of Kristen's shoes in the parking lot where she was actually abducted, so it kind of only heightened the tension.
Yeah.
You had witnesses, you got a shoe that was left behind.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Look how pretty.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ready? Go ahead. You go first.
All right.
I want you to taste it.
Very good. Very good. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's delicious. Okay.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay.
I'm going to be enjoying this.
All right. So for 3 days, Karla and Paul actually videotaped themselves raping, torturing, and sodomizing Kristen, 15-year-old Kristen, forcing her to drink large quantities of alcohol while Paul demanded her submission. 2 days later, Paul went out to buy some pizza. He was spotted by a lady named Carrie Patrick. Now, Paul was stalking her the previous month. And subsequently, Carrie had reported the incident to the Niagara Falls Regional Police. Her report, however, was mishandled by police. And one judge actually said, had it not been mishandled, they may have been able to find Kristen in their home. But the next day, Kristen was dead.
Wow. That's not good.
It was Easter. Happy Easter. Paul and Karla were going to the Homolka home for dinner, but before leaving, Karla later testified that Paul strangled Kristen for exactly 7 minutes while she watched. Again, contradicting this story, Paul testified that Karla had planned to beat Kristen with a rubber mallet.
I feel like they're both true. I don't know.
Sure.
They're both sick.
Well, because Kristen was trying to get away. So she was gonna beat her with a rubber mallet. But instead, because Kristen was actually secured to a hope chest by a noose around her neck, they said that she actually strangled herself, trying to get away. And then Paul said that Karla went over immediately and started to mess with Kristen's hair. Kristen's nude body was found April 30th, 2 weeks later, in Burlington, which is actually only a short distance where Leslie Mahaffey was buried.
Okay.
The first victim. Kristen's hair had been washed and cut off. This is what Karla was doing. Initially, police thought that they did that to her hair and kept her hair as like a trophy.
Right.
However, Karla later testified that they cut her hair to impede the identification, like any identification and trying to find out who she was. Meanwhile, Paul and Karla were questioned several times in connection with an investigation looking into the Scarborough rapist. Basically, it was a serial rapist in the area and several years trying to figure out who it was. Paul and Karla were both interviewed, mostly on Paul, and it was a case that spanned for the last 3 years. However, during Paul's interviews, police actually determined at one point that he was an unlikely suspect. By December of 1992, Paul's DNA that was collected in the Scarborough rapist investigation 3 years prior, they started to test it. They started to test his DNA. So with the stress mounting, December 27th, 1992, Paul severely beat Karla with a flashlight, injuring her arms, her legs, her head, and her face. Karla claimed when she went back to work after the holidays that she was in a car accident when she was getting questioned by coworkers. Then you got a coworker who's going, something just doesn't look right. The coworker called Karla's parents. They proceeded to come and rescue Karla from the home, who was being a battered spouse, physically removed her from the home. And her parents took her to a local hospital where she was examined, her injuries were documented, and she provided a statement to the Niagara Regional Police saying she was a battered spouse and she filed assault charges against Paul. Now, Paul was arrested that day, or later that day, but he was released on his own recognizance because he had no record prior to that. And then Karla moved in with some relatives in a town called Brampton. Well, surprise, shortly after this, Paul's DNA came back from forensics and it was a match. He was identified as the Scarborough rapist.
Oh, my Lord.
He was immediately placed under 24-hour surveillance. Scarborough rapist investigation revealed after Tammy's death, but before Kristen's death, Paul had stalked Sydney Kershaw, Carrie Patrick, the one I mentioned before, and then Carrie Patrick's sister, looking for his next victims. Karla was interviewed by police on February 9, 1993, about the Scarborough rapist. So attempting to deflect from that in fear that she would get caught, she focused her interview on being abused by Paul. Later that day, after after leaving, she goes home and confesses to her aunt and uncle that Paul was the Scarborough rapist, that they were both involved with rapes and murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. She even told her aunt and uncle that they were recorded on videotape. She was afraid, like, it's all going to come out. I need to tell somebody. I need to get this off the chest.
She knows she's in trouble now.
So the Niagara Regional Police reopened Tammy Homolka death investigation as well. 2 days later, Karla, with her lawyer, requested immunity in exchange for her cooperation against Paul. So February 17th, Paul was arrested on numerous charges. So you typically will do a search incident to arrest. The judge declined for them to damage any property. So they couldn't like go into the walls, they couldn't remove things, take things off the walls to look for hidden items. Now, the search warrant outlined that they were looking for the videotapes, very specific evidence, right?
Right.
But the means of getting it was limited.
Okay.
So it's going to come into play though.
Okay.
The search actually lasted 71 days because the judge also ordered that the police were not allowed to watch, like they could watch the videotapes, and videotapes that they found had to be inside the home. They couldn't take them.
Right.
So it lasted 71 days. And the only tape that they found was a short segment showing Karla performing oral sex on the Jane Doe.
Oh my God.
Police would eventually also discover the full tapes wherein Jane Doe was revealed to be a minor. They were able to identify her. Her identity still is concealed to this day. Due to Karla's involvement, Karla's lawyer was informed by the prosecution that they would not grant a full immunity because of her participation. And in May 1993, Karla was offered a 12-year sentence to plead guilty to manslaughter. She accepted. Took a few days, but she did accept, and she began giving her statements to police. The judge ordered a publication ban, where basically he was trying to control rumors and what was put out in the news, so they could have a fair trial for Paul without tainting, people around.
Yeah.
It didn't help. The ban actually only increased it because people were bringing over contraband newspapers that were banned, that were covering the story.
You can't ban freedom of speech.
Well,
It's Canada. Eh? Oh boy.
The ban didn't help. The internet, primitive as it was in 1993, still ran rampant. Newsweek, for instance, they had a published edition on December 6th that indicated they reprinted it with permission and reported that, quote, to keep them from escaping, both girls, Christina and Leslie, were hobbled by their abductors who used veterinary surgical instruments to sever their tendons on their legs. Now, this turned out to not be true. This was just an example of how the rumor mill was like spreading, but because they're not coming out and clarifying and stating the facts of the case, because there's a publication ban, people are going to talk anyway. So there were bootleg copies that were brought over, news programs, newspapers, and there was actually one retired police officer who defied the publication ban and began to distribute foreign media. He was subsequently arrested and convicted on 2 counts of contempt of court. Anyway, yeah. So leading up to the trial, prosecution heavily relied on Karla's testimony, of course, to secure Paul's conviction. She's already in jail. She's pled guilty to manslaughter, so she's starting to serve for 12 years. She's casting herself as a victim to his predatory behavior on the stand. While not specifically directly stating, basically she was explaining it as like Stockholm Syndrome.
Oh, is that what she was saying it was?
She didn't say that specifically, but when I was looking at it and reading it, that's what it appeared to me. Like, she was trying to give Stockholm Syndrome
vibes.
Yes. Now, the search warrants to search Paul's home expired April 30th, 1993. A week later, May 6th, Paul instructed his lawyer, in writing, to go to his house. Remove, but not watch, 6 8mm videotapes that were hidden in a pot light in the bathroom, like behind the light.
Paul said this?
Yes. To his lawyer. So May 17th, 11 days later, Karla escorted police to the home, showed them around, because technically it was still her home too, it was still her residence. But this didn't help because the police were able to get DNA evidence and the receipts for the cement that he bought the day after they killed Leslie. Now, before her imprisonment, Karla was evaluated numerous times by psychologists, psychiatrists, other mental health officials. One official reported that Karla, quote, remained something of a diagnostic mystery. Despite her ability to present herself very well, there is a moral vacuity in which is difficult but not impossible to explain. So they're like, we don't know. She presents herself well, but there's something about her. We can't clarify. We can't name it. So the day that Karla was arraigned on 2 counts of manslaughter,
Paul was also charged with his unlawful confinement, aggravated sexual assault, first-degree murder, and 1 count of dismemberment. Paul's lawyers watched the 8mm videotapes. They planned on using the evidence in there to impeach Karla on the stand during Paul's trial.
Oh boy. Gotcha, bitch.
Yeah. Karla was tried June 28, 1993, and with the limited details of what had happened because of the publication ban, but she was officially sentenced to the 12 years of imprisonment on July 6, 1993.
Right.
But in the tapes, Paul's lawyers witnessed Karla sexually assaulting 4 female victims, having sex with a female prostitute in Atlantic City, and also drugging other unconscious victims. One of his lawyers started to get a little concerned with the ethical issues of what he was holding, how he got them, and he wasn't providing this discovery over to prosecution.
Oh no.
So he goes to the Law Society of Upper Canada, their professional conduct committee, and he's like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And they're like, yes, seal it and give it over to prosecution. Like,
yeah,
you don't need to hold this. They also actually recommended that he remove himself as lawyer, but he did. 2 weeks. He took him about 2 weeks, but he decided to do that. So the tapes were absolutely critical in demonstrating Karla's involvement, but she was already tried and convicted.
right.
But when the public found out about it, they were outraged.
Yeah.
They were like, I mean, especially since she had taken the plea agreement, because of this, she actually became known, or this became known as the deal with the devil scandal. That's like what newspapers wrote it, and they're basically saying it was the deal with the devil. Like,
yeah.
You made a deal with the devil, and later, even though she was found out to be part of it, she still got away with it in a way, you know? But with the plea bargain done, Karla providing significant amount of details and evidence in the case against Paul, the judge did opt to not overturn the plea, conviction, or anything. They got kind of beat up a lot about that, of course. But the media frenzy featured monikers such as demonic duos, Barbie and Ken, perfect couple, perfect murderers, and 60 Killer Karla. By 1995, after testifying in Paul's case and while in prison, Karla took sociology courses through the nearby Queen's University, which caused another spark in the public and media's outrage because they were like, she's going to college for free, she's in jail, she did all these horrible things.
Yeah.
Karla was required to pay the fees, however, she did later tell an author at some point that she did get some assistance. Either way, she had a computer in herself and later graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology. After undergoing continual psychological evaluations, they all agreed that she showed signs of spousal abuse, but some claimed because of her education that might have actually helped her demonstrate it, like understanding what the signs were.
Some people should not go into that field. Some people are crazy.
So, summer of 1997, she was moved from a maximum security prison to minimum in northeastern Montreal. She was there for 2 years when she sued the government after her transfer request to a Montreal halfway house was denied. But it was denied because it was in a proximity of schools. So they're like, no. So she sued the government because her request got denied.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's going to get denied. You're a sexual offender. In 2000, she was reevaluated again and told the psychiatrist that she saw herself as a man and planned to undergo a sex operation. This came about when she and another female inmate were in a sexual relationship, leaving love letters and everything to each other. After the woman who Karla was in a relationship with was released from prison, by the way, she was in prison for armed robbery.
Yeah.
But when she was released, she reoffended intentionally to go back into jail to be with Karla.
Are you kidding me?
Karla apparently did say in a later interview with a psychiatrist that she was ashamed of that relationship. An overall psychological assessment. One psychiatrist said, quote, "What is particularly compelling and telling is how radically different are the faces that Karla presents." End quote. Meaning, like, to the audience. And she knows her audience. She knows who she's talking to.
Right.
So she's going to address them appropriately. Her former veterinary clinic coworker and friend, Wendy Luxon, told the Toronto Sun that, quote, "Now she believes that Homolka's actions were those of a psychopath, not of an abuse-controlled woman." Yeah. 2001, Karla was transferred back to a maximum security prison in Quebec. By December of that year, Canadian authorities determined that also there was no possible future use for the videotapes, so 6 of the tapes were destroyed of them raping their victims. However, the tapes of Karla commenting, and while she was watching, they kept those sealed. I don't know what for, maybe for something in the future, I'm not sure. Throughout her imprisonment, Karla participated in every treatment program that she could, that was recommended by prison authorities, until she was asked to participate in a program that was designed for male sex offenders. She refused on the grounds that she was neither a male nor a convicted sex offender, which is crazy, because she was a sex offender.
Yes.
July 4th, 2005, she was released from prison. She did her time. She was under several restrictions, such as keeping police informed of her address, where she worked, when she planned to be away from her home for more than 48 hours, that she would never contact Paul or the families of her victims, Leslie Happy and Kristen French, or the Jane Doe. She was ordered to continue therapy and counseling, required to provide her DNA, and any violation of these orders, there was some more in there, but it basically automatically 2-year sentence. 2-year prison sentence to violate those orders. Now, several days before she was released, Paul was interviewed by police and his lawyers, wherein he said he had always intended to let the girls go. He said when Leslie Happy's blindfold fell off, Karla became concerned that Leslie would be able to identify Paul and report him to police. Paul said that Karla planned to murder Leslie by injecting an air bubble in her bloodstream, causing an air embolism. Oh my God. I don't even know how she died. I mean, she was cut up into pieces, you know? But at trial, prosecutors said that Paul always intended to kill Kristen French because she was never blindfolded, the one that was walking home from school.
Right.
And she would be able to identify Paul. June 2006, one television station reported that Karla's attempt to change her name was rejected, which was interesting. In 2007, a newspaper reported that Karla had given birth to a baby boy, and apparently several nurses refused to care for her before she gave birth.
Word got around who she was, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that she still should be in prison.
Yeah. December of 2007, another news station reported that Karla left Canada for the Antilles with her husband, her new husband, and her 1-year-old, so they could have a more normal life.
She found somebody to marry her again after all this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then, while in the Antilles, she changed her name to Leanne Teal. Did she tell the police about it? What she supposed to do? I don't know. 2008, Karla wrote an apology letter to her family and continued to blame Paul. She said, quote, "He wanted me to get sleeping pills from work, threatened me physically and emotionally abused me when I refused. I tried so hard to save her," end quote. Her, I'm presuming her sister. Yeah. 2010, one newspaper reported that Karla is eligible to be pardoned from her crimes altogether. Offenders convicted of first or second degree murder or with indeterminate sentences are ineligible. However, Karla was only convicted of manslaughter, and she actually got less than the maximum sentence for manslaughter, so she was completely eligible. With this in mind, a bill was passed to limit access to pardons for serious crimes, and it was passed in only 12 days. I was not able to find anything that showed that she ever applied, but she was eligible. 2012, journalist Paula Todd found Homolka living in Guadalupe under the name Leanne Bordialis. With her husband and now 3 children. As of April 2016, another news report placed her back in Quebec with her children. Parents of children who attended the same school as Karla's were understandably concerned about this. However, the school boards reassured them, it's gonna happen, sure, okay. As of 2020, reports revealed that she was still living in Quebec, but now without her husband or her children. Don't know what happened. And then the latest I saw was an article from January of this year, 2024, that said Karla lives in Montreal with her second husband and her kids. So this stuff, it's all over the place.
Wow.
People are saying all kinds of different things. Now, real quick, popular culture. It's been in literature. In 1997, Lynn Crosby, a Canadian poet, novelist, cultural critic, published Paul's case, termed a theoretical fiction. So she published this case as theoretical fiction. After analyzing the couple's crimes, it provided an examination of the cultural effects of shocking revelations and controversy surrounding the trial. Linda Verano, I don't know how to say that because it's French, she was the one that was involved with Karla at prison. She wrote a book with Christine Desjardins on the topic of her relationship with Karla while in prison. This was published in 2005 by Les Editions Vox Perez. I speak no Frenchy. TV and film. 1998 episode of Homicide: Life on the Streets. The episode was called Strangled, Not Stirred. Yes! Strangled, Not Stirred.
Remember that for season 4.
A 2000 episode of Law & Order called Fools for Love. 2006 episode of Criminal Minds called The Perfect Storm. MSNBC documentary series called Dark Heart, Iron Hand devoted an episode to the case. It was later rebroadcasted as an episode of their MSNBC Investigates and retitled To Love and Kill. In 2006, Quantum Entertainment released a film, Karla, which had the working title Deadly. It had Laura Prepon starring as Karla. You know Laura Prepon?
Yes, I love her.
Yeah, and Misha Collins starring as Paul. Tim Danson, lawyer for French and the Happy Families, allegedly was given a private screening of this and announced that the families had no objection to the film. Nevertheless, Ontario Premier Dalton McQuinty called for a boycott. The film was given a limited release in Canada by Crystal Films. Her case is featured on season 2, episode 8 of Killer Dolls from Deadly Sins TV show. An episode of Murder Made Me Famous on Reel's television network aired December 8, 2018. Another documentary aired on Disney. Discovery Plus. The Ken and Barbie Killers, The Lost Tapes. It premiered December 12, 2021. It had 4 episodes. 2019 Netflix documentary miniseries Don't Fuck with Cats. Hunting an Internet Killer featured a segment on Karla Homolka, who had been a fixation of the murderer, Luke Magnotta.
Yep.
Magnotta claimed that unnamed parties were trying to implicate him as being in a relationship with Karla. The documentary dubbed Homolka the most hated woman in Canada. And then a couple podcasts. Top 5. Ours being number 1.
Yes, of course.
Criminal as fuck. Episode 2, The Ken and Barbie Killers. The case was also covered in season 2 of Very Scary People. Investigation Discovery podcast. Crime Junkies. They did their podcast on this February 4th, 2020 in an episode titled Serial Killer Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. And This Is Why We Drink. Did this story. Episode 33 on their podcast. And Crime Chat American Cat season finale.
Season 3.
Season 3.
Cheers.
And that is the Ken and Barbie story.
That was a horrific story, but a delicious drink. I truly enjoyed hearing it while drinking this delicious drink. Okay.
What a story. We had a couple of crazy stories today.
Yes. All right. Well, because we're only doing hanging chatter, for more information on this case, please check out After That Crime Chat, only available on Patreon.
And don't forget to follow us. We take October to research and get ready for season 4, which kicks off in November.
Yes.
But don't forget to follow us on our socials. You can keep up with us and see what we got going on. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and see what's coming up for season 4.
Yes. Remember, Crime Chat with Nat and Kat. When you become a VIP chatter, you will have access to bonus episodes, behind the scenes, bloopers, and free merch. And check out some merch in the works.
Yes, be sure to follow us if you don't want to miss out what we got coming for season 4. And cheers.
Cheers.
We'll see you on the next Crime Chat.